Can anyone just let me know that I'm audible to everyone?
Yes, you are audible. Yes,
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Devojit, for moderating the entire webinar. Hopefully, a good discussion session we all would have through. For some reason, I cannot open my video, maybe due to some technical problems. I hope it would be okay. And meanwhile, if I be able to set my video things, I would really like to do so, just to get a better introduction with our participants who are present currently here. Without any further delay, I can start our today's talk discussion with some very lights of the overall discussion which we're going to have now. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So basically, as I think Devojit Dash already introduced me. Also, I'd like to say that I'm Tahmina Khanam. I'm working in International Labour Organization as National Program Officer. The National Labour Organization, I basically work in the Skills 21 project. Skills 21 project is currently working in Bangladesh with the motto of strengthening the overall skills development system and skills strengthening recognition system in Bangladesh, which is being funded by European Union and implemented by ILO in Bangladesh in coordination with the government of Bangladesh, specifically with the Director of Technical Education. So as part of our project, one of the biggest intervention is basically to work for the migrant workers, overseas migrant workers, which includes at the same time the returnee migrant workers who are coming back in Bangladesh and their family members for better facilitation of their integration to the local job market. So from this, while working under this project, I will basically today discuss a light of the context and overview of our total entire interventions, the ongoing interventions. Briefly, I would introduce at the same time, while working on for these migrant workers at different levels with the challenges which we have faced and some future recommendation, which I'd like to put in for our discussion and next level of intervention just to facilitate a good labor market for them, including migrants, returning migrants in the overseas, at the same time in the local job market as well. So just moving forward, if you can go to the next slide, please. So as we know that international labor migration is one of the main contributors to growth of the Bangladesh economy. And if we can look at the status that the 13 million Bangladeshi citizens basically migrated for overseas employment, and they are currently working in 165 countries across the globe, and which is basically is contributing to the 7 to 8% of the country's total GDP ratio. At the same time, as if we can see that annually in every fiscal year, 5 lakh people they are migrating from Bangladesh to different destination countries. And if we can link is a very direct reason, and apparent cause is that to have a lack of employment opportunities in Bangladesh in the local job market. This is the reason directly is they are migrating, is being very straightforward. At the same time, we can see that climate change remains as a very underlying cause, and because this climate change caused this lack of food insecurity, lack of job opportunities, economic activities in the local job market, that's basically caused this huge amount of migration from Bangladesh in every year. About 15 million people in Bangladesh could be on the move by 2050. That's basically a prediction of USAID report published, which potentially causing the forced migration in human history due to climate change. And these climate change affected the, it's working as a driver basically for the unsafe and irregular migration of the most of the time, because it's many of the time is basically happens the forced migration. It's not like by choice they are making this decision. There are rather many factors which are working as the push factors for this migration thing. And if we can just look at the profile of these migrations, which is happening currently now from Bangladesh to the world, is that out of total overseas migrants, around 44%, which are classified as less skilled, having low or no skills levels, which you say, and another 16% are classified as semi-skills. So if this is the profile why they are migrating to the destinations, this is due to lack of recognition of their skills in overseas job stations. Even after of having many years of work experience, they are depriving of better wages. If we can have the comparison, can you kindly go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so if we can have a very quick comparison and between the similar kind of context which the countries are sharing in the South Asian region, we can see that for every $100 earned by a Bangladeshi migrants, $200 is earned by an Indian worker and $300 is being earning now by a Sri Lankan worker. So this the very main factor here is the level of skills or the deprivation of having the access to the skills development opportunities currently in Bangladesh. And if you can recall that from the 2020s, basically due to COVID-19 and the worldwide pandemic, a million of migrant workers basically has come back, returned to Bangladesh. And we at that time there was a study being conducted by IOM, which also stated that there are increased amount of interest that has been lied among the returning migrants, which is on to having this upgradation of their skills. Basically, as we can see, that 60% of the migrants who have returned during that time, during the pandemic, showed their interest in upgrading their skill set. And in addition, 75% of them wanted to remigrate, where the recognition of their skills can be a benefit. This is their assumption, and they have provided their thoughts while interviewing them. So basically, this is the context on which we are working, and our project. I will just quickly show some of the intervention which has been taken to address these problems. Basically, under Skills 21 project, we have a target of to support the reintegration team to 3,000 returning migrants and their family members, at the same time to support 1,000 potential migrants and having a facilitate decent employment promotion for these 1,000 through skilling, upgradation of their skillings, and then prepare the system and strengthening the system to recognize their previously achieved skills. If we can go to the next step, next slide. These are basically the ongoing activities which are currently undertaken under Skills 21 project. This is the baseline need assessment, identification, and profiling thing that when we have conducted a baseline study that's basically piloting in 2 districts, Dhaka and North-Sindhi districts, and just to understand the profile of the returning migrants and their family members, who are they, where are they coming from, with which level of skills they have achieved in the country of destination, what are the needs now while they have come back in Bangladesh as per the needs of the local job market for their integration. We've conducted the labor market need assessment just to identify the employment and business opportunity which are being available in line with their existing skill set to the job market. And we have identified more than 5,000 basically returning migrants and their family members. Just to provide a note that in Bangladesh currently, there is no returning migrants database prepared or developed. So it was very difficult just to identify them, who are the returnees who have come from different destination countries. And then we have to identify, we have to create linkages with different partners, be it government, NGOs, the CSOs, we have to make liaison. We have signed the MOU with the IOM and working partnership established with other projects as well, just to make a database of returning migrants so that we can just sort out the database as per their profile. We can provide support to them. If we go to the next slide, it is just basically, yeah, there are a couple of, you can press next, because it is a flow chart, which I would like to show you. Thank you. No, previous, yeah. So this is basically a brief flowchart where I would like to show how the whole process works when it's coming to the returning migrants who doesn't have any identification or any database, and not was so easy to identify them and then enroll to our services. So this is the flowchart basically for the economic integration, how basically we want to ensure and support them for their integration to the local job market. We first of all identify them with a profile, which basically to analyze their needs and to is kind of asking some queries about their and taking notes of their profile, like skill set. If there are other services apart from job they need, sometimes some returning migrants found as not so much stable mentally, psychosocially. So they different returning migrants may have different kinds of needs priority basis. So we have to look at them, look at their profile, and then design our intervention at the next level for them. Then we enroll to training, that basically we have partnered with several institutes, which I will show later in my slides, who are our partners currently we are working with. We enroll them to the training, which is basically we are now providing the competency-based training, which is basically the national technical vocational education under the framework, national framework. They are currently enrolling to the training, and we do career counseling. Based on the training they are now receiving, and the available jobs what are in the local market currently available, we counsel them, we provide them advice how to approach to the employers, how to develop his skills while currently in their training session. So this kind of career counseling we do provide, and then the assessment and the certification. Upon successful assessment, they have been awarded a certificate which is being issued by Bangladesh Technical Education Board, the authority of issuing this kind of national certificate. And then we linkage them with the employers. We have employers forum in different training institutes, government-led training institutes. We have created employers forum where the local employers basically come to a board, and they facilitate the employment for these returning migrants who are received the training. And through this facilitation and linkages with the employers, they basically enter to the employment and make their alternative livelihood. So this is basically a flow chart which I would like to show how this entire things works. Next slide, please. So after basically this profiling and identification thing, we do have some focus on the institutional strengthening and capacity building of those training institutes at the agencies who are entitled to this intervention, like the BTEB and the PMET, which is the Bureau of Manpower Training Agency, which is currently an agency of the Ministry of Expatriate in Bangladesh. And we prepared the implementation guideline for economic reintegration, how stakeholder, be it government or private organization, if they want to take any project, if they want to take an initiative for economic reintegration, how they basically need to be prepared themselves and how the entire process will be ongoing. This is the guideline which they can use. This is under process. We are now drafting it, and it will be published by the end of the project. And training capacity includes teachers training, equipment support, laboratory facilities, which we would also provide to our partner institutes. The third number is the ERPL platform development, which is ongoing currently in coordination with the BTAB. We will pilot it basically in 3 occupations that will be selected by BTAB. This very briefly, if I can try to explain the ERPL platform, is that we all know that recognition of prior learning, the RPL, which basically any returning migrants or any worker from the local job market, they basically get the recognition of their skills. Sometimes the many workers are doing for like 10 years, they are involved in particular occupation, but they do not have any certificate of their skills. For this reason, they may not have the entrance to the local job market, the formal job market, because they do not have certificate, but they have skills for like 10 years or 12 years. So through this RPL, they just simply recognize their skills with a certificate. They attend to an assessment exam, and after the exam, they just achieve a certificate. But for the migrant workers who are currently now in, for example, in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Jordan, it is difficult for them to get this kind of certificate and recognize their skills, because there is no facilities in the destination countries that Bangladeshi migrant workers can recognize their certificate and attend in any exam. So this ERPL platform, basically the online platform where the migrant workers can attain the certificate through their portfolio assessments. They will simply upload in this online platform their portfolio, including their job experience and certification from employers. This kind of documents they will upload. They will be assessed by a panel board and also face the interview, and by this upon accomplishment and successful interview, they will get the national standard certificate. Then they can easily get access to the decent employment in the overseas. So this is the ERP platform which we are working now with the BTEB. Coming to the skills enterprise training and RPL recognition of prior learning, this is a very short note that 1,000 potential migrants who receive this competency-based skills training. This is a 4 months training, 3 months classroom based and 1 month on the job training. And this recognition of prior learning and entrepreneurship development training. And when it is coming to the returning migrants and their family members, more than 1,500 returning migrants and family members already completed their training and certified already, meaning that they have completed, assessed, completed and certified. Also additional 1,500 which will be trained as well by the end of the project. So far 1,600 returning migrant workers and their family members employed after their training. So this through our employment, through our facilitation to enter into the job market. And by end of the project, 80% of total skills training, or 80% of the returning migrants who receive the skills training will be provided the employment support. This is our target. That's what we're working on. Can you go to the next slide? This is basically there may be some other information if you can just press next two. So this is basically the job fair which we have organized in Chittagong, and where 200 returnees and family members participated. We have collected their CVs, we have analyzed their profile, and then we have invited the Chittagong Chamber of Commerce, the employers who basically matched with their CVs, and eventually by the job fair they have created linkages, dropped their CV, and 27 returning migrants family members got an instant support and employment from the employer side. We will organize our next job networking fair, that will be in Sylhet, only for the returning migrants and family members. Can you go to the next slide? This is basically the knowledge product development, how the one knowledge product which will basically focus on the best practices. There are several best practices we can see when it's coming into the reintegration thing. And so we basically, the report will capture the different best practices on economic reintegration for returning migrants in South Asian region to be prepared, which will be prepared and published. And on this, Ramru is supporting us. In South Asian region is that the countries from South Asia basically share the similar context. So the motivation of the study is to capture those practices and to check and pilot in the context of Bangladesh at the same time, if how the best way it can work for this integration thing. And the stress test study just to measure and the impact of training in the beneficiary level, and also the capturing the best practices at the beneficiary level, and to organize a event to showcase this thing. So in the next slides, these are basically our project institutes. If I can just go through very quickly, like we are supporting now 7 government training institutes in Bangladesh basically to make them the model institutes. We are supporting them with the curricula, we are supporting them teachers training, the lab facilities, to support the overall the competency-based training. We are supporting these 7, the bottom 7 of the training institutes, and the first 2, which is TTC Dhaka and VTTI Bogura, that will be thus we are supporting these 2 institutes just to become the Center for Skills Excellences. These 2 institutes basically are supporting now the teachers training, how our teachers from the government side will be ready at the same time to support the local workers who work now in the local job market, and who will also train the migrant workers who are migrating to the overseas. So here basically as I said, like our main target would be to check the needs of the beneficiaries, at the same time then provide the facilities and occupation to as per their needs. So here, if it is the migrants to the overseas, it is the migrants internally who are being coming from different regions to other regions, other metropolitan cities. So that will be same thing will be applicable for them as well, to understand their needs and skills, at the same time to understand the local job market, and then introduce the occupations and skills level to the institutes. Going to the next slides. Yeah, if you can press another next. I think these are the other institutes which I will not take by names. You can see that these are the institutes which are under Director of Technical Education. At the same time, BMET, they are now currently working on this training thing to support the youths who are unemployed, at the same time the migrant workers who are going back, and the returnees. At the last bullet, if we can see that there are 21 basically the technical training center and IMTs which are under BMET, Bureau of Manpower, Employment and Training. They are dedicatedly supporting the migrant workers, especially the returnees. And the very quick reflection is that these are the training institutes in prior, they didn't take any separate intervention for returnees or specify with the attention of returnees only. This is the first time they're from under Skills 21 project, they have started their intervention focusing on the returnee migrants. They are collecting data, identifying returnees who are the returnees in their region, and then they are inviting them to the training, counseling them, providing training, and then employment support. Going to the next slides, this is our constituents and private sector affiliations. There are Bangladesh Employers Federation who are supporting us now to promote the employment in the job market, the Worker Association, Industry Skills Council, and also some development partners who are supporting us on this migration and employment. Going to the next slide, it's basically I would share now the challenges part. While working on these issues, we have faced basically some challenges to implement the interventions in a proper way, and also we would say these are the findings basically which we can say now while working in the different levels for these migrants, returnees. I would focus basically for the migrant workers, though our intervention is entirely the labor worker and labor market. And the major challenge is that the lack of common skills assessment and certification system that needs to be shared and understood by both the origin and destination countries. Why is it? Because that, for example, Bangladesh has its own standard of skills assessment and certification, level 1 to level 4, which is basically the national competency based training. However, Saudi Arabia, for example, which is the highest migration receiver country for Bangladeshi people, Saudi Arabia is maintaining different set of recognition and skills level which are not matching between two countries. So the people who are receiving, for example, level 2 certificate on their skills, it is not recognized when it is going or migrating to Saudi Arabia. So it has less uses what has been expected. So this is the very much challenge that there is lack of common skills assessment certification shared by both origin and destination countries. Also, the second is that there is no clear indication of how a qualification awarded by an awarding body compares to the other similar certificates. Just to share that in Bangladesh, currently 19 ministries has launched their skills system and skills in intervention they have launched, and 18 government body has involved into this entire system as well. But they are using their own set of standard, own kind of curricula they are following. Their certification is different. So there is no basically clear indication or comparable standards. If one people, or for example, one migrant workers who is being certified by the BTB, which is the national agency who has the authority to issue the national competency based certificate, how it will be comparable with the other certificates which is being given by other ministry or other agency. So there is basically, this is the qualification or comparability is missing very much. The third point is the mismatch. I think I have pretty much discussed. However, it's very important and very we feel that there is a very much mismatch between the demands of the employers and the supply of the students who are currently enrolling to the different training programs now in the different institutes. These kind of mismatch is happening basically different levels. When in the local job market, for example, the migrant who is coming from Khulna and he is being the victim of the climate and then different issues, he is migrating to other districts. However, for example, if he is coming in Dhaka, Dhaka has different kind of requirement. Dhaka or Chittagong as a metropolitan city, they have different sets of skills and employers have different requirements. But the people who is living in Khulna, he has different kind of skills. So if he is migrating to Dhaka, then the institutes who are currently running training program in Dhaka, they have to keep it in mind that what are the requirement is existing in the market so that the training institutes can provide those kind of skills in an occupation level training. Now that would be helpful for the beneficiaries or I'd say students or the labor workers to get employed easily in the local market. And the same applies to the overseas market as well. For example, if the women migrants, if we can say, they are going to the housekeeping occupations, mostly in the Saudi Arabia or to Jordan in the garments occupation. However, the women migrant who is from Rangpur, the occupation of housekeeping is not really available in the Rangpur. Rangpur is a district of Bangladesh, is the northern side district of Bangladesh. So she, with low skill set, she is migrating or he is migrating. So this kind of mismatch is a very big challenge while promoting decent employment for them. And then conflicting standard of certification, I think we have discussed, and the inadequacy of infrastructure and delivery planning at district and local level institutes, which I have mentioned is basically from our field experience, we have seen that the people are not really willing to go and visit to they are much more prone to visit to nearby districts, even though the same district, to get any kind of skills training. They don't want to move to other district basically just to receive this kind of training. So the training facility should be available at least the upajila level same time, because we never know who is setting his mind to migrate, whatever it is internationally, or even when the flood will be, I mean, they will be the victim of the floods at any time it can be happened. And so there should be some facilities available when many people is migrating both internally or internationally to get access to skill development opportunities and access to decent employment. When we say decent employment, it's meaning that you have to have the right set of skills and the mindset and counseling to get access to the employment service. If we can go to the next slide. I have mainly discussed already that unavailability of proper returnee migrants data set with comprehensive portfolio. There is currently no returnee migrants database available in country in Bangladesh. And when it's coming to the comprehensive portfolio is, I'm also meaning that because returnee migrants is basically a bit specialized group. Rather than the potential migrants, I wouldn't say, or I wouldn't compare so much of directly like who is sensitive and who is not. But when we are assessing the portfolio of returnee migrants, most of the time it has been found that the Bangladeshi returnee migrants are most of the time it is involuntary return, which basically it goes with them. I mean, sometimes maybe visa expired, they have been the traffic victim, but many kind of things they faced in the overseas and destination country, then they have compelled to return. So these are the portfolio. Basically, when we design any kind of intervention for the returning migrants, we need to have a comprehensive portfolio, and definitely with the detail of the skills level. I mean, what kind of occupation they were involved when they were in the country of destination. And then we have to consider that their years of experience, whether they have any certificate and motivation to get to skills again when upon return to the country. So these kind of information we need to we need to have when designing any intervention. And so that's why it was a very big challenge, even a prime challenge when any project is being taking a launch on reintegration from the government or from development partners, private sector as well. The next is that lack of opportunities. Okay, no, in the previous, thank you, in the previous slide. So this is the lack of opportunity in the country of destination for skills upgradation recognition for the migrants, which limits access to decent employment. I think I have discussed this, that many a time that people, since the people are not much aware that, okay, if they want to make this safe migration, regular migration, they need this kind of skills, they need kind of upgradation and qualification certificates. So many a time that potential migrants, they just go by their own without having proper preparation or documentation. But when going to the destination country, they feel that, okay, they are not getting much salary comparatively to others. They then they're being desperate why they can get this get their skills recognized, but there is no currently opportunities in the country of destinations. So this is very much a challenge for us while supporting these returning migrants. Just to share that in Saudi Arabia, that Bangladesh government has taken initiative to functional 8 or 9 RTOs, registered training organization, where the skills migrant workers can get access to it, but still maybe not functional, and we recommend that there should be more expansion of this kind of facilities in other destination countries as well. The next challenge is basically the lack of information, which I have already said, that since the migrant workers doesn't know where to go, why to go, I mean, why this skill development is necessary for them, what will happen as the consequence in the destination countries, since they do not know this kind of information, and for this reason is basically limit them from making any informed decisions or regular migration. Yeah, so this result in lost opportunities and also in training investments as a mistake, I would just say. Going to the next slide is basically the recommendation for future strategic implication for the decent employment for migrants and reintegration for the returnees. Can we go to the next slide? At the policy level, our recommendation is to revisit the existing and ongoing national plans and policies on migration and reintegration issue, and to develop a national skill strategy for the migrant workers. The strategy would rather say that the region-wide skill strategy they would be able to develop at the Ministry of Expatriate, for which we are supporting the ministry now. That if what is the requirement of the Middle East region, what is the requirement of the Europe, and then as part that they can prepare as an agency, as an institution, they can prepare themselves in the long run to support the migrant workers, and also the policy for skills classification for migration in line with the competency standard. For example, if any migrant workers is achieving level 1 skills certificate, level 1 we are saying that basic skills worker, when he is I mean, which kind of skill level we would identify that, okay, this is the basic level, this is the mid level, this is the high level skilled workers. So this kind of policy for skills classification we recommend, and we're supporting the ministry to adapt and to develop and adapt, and promote inclusion of specific provision for economic reintegration in relevant national policies. We see that this economic reintegration is very much missing agenda in the entire policy sections while developing and relevant to the migration or skills. And we can see there are other policies, that national skills development policy, reintegration policy, which is ongoing, for why the ILO is supporting the Ministry of Expatriate to develop reintegration policy, the SME policy, small and medium enterprise policy. So we would recommend to revisit these kind of policies, at the same time to include the provision for economic reintegration, so that the returnee migrants, the climate induced migrants, these of the vulnerable people, they need to be included into these policies as well. And then to organize some technical level dialogues between the ILO tripartites, meaning that the private sector, the worker associations, to promote this kind of decent employment concept to them, and with their facilitation to promote it into the entire state level and different at the beneficial level as well. And supporting the BMET, which is that Bureau of Manpower and Empowerment Training, to upgrade the occupational database, basically the reclassifying under ISCO is that the international standard maintaining and strengthening returnee migrants database, integrating and utilizing their skills profile, which is definitely would be the gender and sex disaggregated database. BMETs do need to upgrade this document database so that they can see the so far the achievements by skills level of the migrant workers. They can assess by themselves what are the skills needed for the future migration and preparation. At the same time, how the local job market is reacting to the intervention is ongoing currently. Going to the next slide. Can you just kindly go to the next slide, please? This is basically more on to the matching the skills and preparing the structure to place itself in a best position to adapt. And then we have recommended to extend the partnership with private sector, which is very much essential for understanding the emerging labor demand in the short, medium, and longer terms. If we can see that, for example, in Tangail, as a district of Bangladesh, if we have a very good relationship with the Tangail Chamber of Commerce, the private sector, who are the main driver of employment, if we can have the partnership, and this partnership needs to be exist between the government institutes and the employer, because government institutions are for the sustainability aspect. So basically, these are the partnerships necessary to understand the emerging labor demand in the future prospect. And the Industry Skills Council, which are the functional now, they are under NSDA, they need a very good cooperation and market analysis with the labor attaché, the embassies of the destination country, to understand the quality training, both for aspirant migrants and the returnees. Basically, to understand the demand of the overseas markets, what is the requirement for coming from Greece, what are the requirements coming from Japan, and then prepare our institutes accordingly. And we need to generate evidence and promote sector level best practices in industry. Basically, for example, I'm meaning the sector level best practices, that if it is a tourism sector, what are the best practices here and outside, and how we can really get more up to date onto this sector. The third is to ensure maximum benefit from labor migration. The MAT needs to collect the relevant details from countries of destination in connection with demand-driven job requirements, and which will basically expand the overseas job market. It is basically also a priority from government side that BMET to extend its job market for the overseas migrant workers. Currently, for example, if Bangladeshi migrant workers are mainly going to the Middle East, it's the more than the half of the migrant workers, they are going Middle East and Saudi Arabia, especially Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, these of the countries. But the diversification is very much needed so that we can expand our job markets and we can send more quality migration and safe migration, because we have to then classify that by skills level. We can segregate the demand of the job markets, the overseas, and then we can send the migrant workers when it is matches their jobs and skills level. And also not by the least, international recruitment agencies, we know that act as an intermediaries between sending countries and receiving countries. So we all know that Bangladesh, the recruitment cost is very high for the migrant workers, which basically also create impacts while making their decisions. At the same time, it has a high impact on their integration, because oftentimes when the migration cost is very high, they cannot really cope up with the cost even while working 5 years or 10 years in a destination country. Eventually they have to come back when they cannot get a recovery of the migration cost. So it's also should be like we should follow the standardizing the practice under and around an ethical framework. For that, ILO is also supporting the Ministry of Expatriate to get the very ethical framework of recruitment, the entire thing. So going to the next slide is basically we have to also work on adapting the regional model competency standard, which needs to be prioritized in order to secure recognition of migrant worker skills in country of destination. And this kind of regional model competency standard, we can only initiate, but for the first time, we have to place in mind that we have to initiate some bilateral agreements between the home country and destination country in the first place. Bilateral agreement, Bangladesh currently has some bilateral agreements with Saudi, Kuwait, Jordan, and Japan, where there's some demand has been placed in between these two countries. At the same time, they have they maintain some sort of skills level, and they send to the this country of destination. But the regional model competency standard would be very much appreciated, and it's very necessary when for example, if Bangladesh is belong to the South Asian region, and then the South Asian countries can agree to a common competency standard, and it can place us as a region in a very better position while negotiating with the destination countries. If we get the National Skills Development Policy 2011, which is focus on the increasing the capacities of the Tibet institutions, which needs to be increased. The teachers, the equipment upgradation, this is the focus has been given. And also I would say that it is important to focus on the greening greening jobs, and encourage the migrant workers or the migrant workers where they are internally migrant and the returning migrants on greening entrepreneurship, which will basically make our economies and think differently, and just transition, making the overall economic environmental friendly. Going to the next slide, which is basically the last slide of this today's entire presentation. The few last recommendation is to strengthening the skills recognition system for returnees through expansion of ERPL system. I have described the ERPL system. What is ERPL? As we recommend to expand this ERPL system, and then issuing the national skills passport that is help the migrant workers to connect with the employers. Basically, at the same time, this national skills passport can be a precondition while issuing the smart card for exit permit. The national skills passport basically is a kind of a passport where the portfolio of the labor of the worker would be uploaded, and employers have the access to that portfolio. Is a very QR code which any employer can scan and get the overall portfolio of the migrant workers, and then he can assess if it is compatible for the jobs and not. It can be applicable both in national and internationally. For internationally, it will require the recognition by that country at that level. Enhanced capacity of wage earners welfare board, that is basically be the center for reintegration thing. I would quickly go through the last 2 points, which is basically indicating the low participation rate of women and person with disabilities in overall skills development system. As we know that the national Overseas Employment Policy 2006, which recognized the right to migrate for both men and women for employment. However, the women who are migrating from Bangladesh, there are almost 9 to 10 lakh women who have migrated, but it has been found that they are going with very low level of skills. So it is important to focus to make the whole system is very much inclusive for the women, at the same time person with disabilities. And lastly, the recommendation is to get some concrete awareness raising campaigns, initiatives to inform the migrant workers if they are displaced, if they are migrating internally, or if they want to go to migrate externally, and then or coming they have come back as returning. So they need to understand and inform that okay, there are services available for me if I am a return, if I am going to abroad, so I have to get access to it. I have just to go and apply for this. So this kind of for these of the initiatives, I think the awareness campaigns would be very much helpful for the plan intervention. So basically, I would conclude here. Maybe I have taken a lot of time to present. So yeah, I've just come to the end of today's presentation. After
Okay, so I can see that Tahmina has presented a very interesting case study, and not necessarily a case study, but a country perspective on how climate migration induced vulnerabilities and the push that is being caused by economic uncertainties and lack of employment in Bangladesh is pushing people out of the country to foreign destinations, particularly in the Middle East, and how the returning migrants are getting reintegrated into society through these programs that have been launched by the government. But we can see that there are a lot of inconsistencies and kind of irregularities in kind of really integrating the migrants because of their skill set, because of the lack of national policy which is not which is in place but has not necessarily been in sync with what the laborers need. So there are a lot of challenges that Tahmina has already mentioned. So we have a set of questions that have been asked by our colleagues who are participant in this webinar. So I will go one by one with the questions that have been asked, starting from the first one. So there is a question that is asked by our colleague here. I'll just try to pick it up. So we have a question here which says, just able to capture it. How do you identify the migrants for training for the purpose of the Skill 21 project? So do you like to answer this question first, Tahmina?
Yes, definitely I can. That's basically the flow chart. If I can again refer to how basically we identify, since there is no database particularly for returning migrants, we then partner, we make partnership with the different stakeholders, the development partners, CSO, local CSOs, and then also we approach to the government agency for example, the Wage Earners Welfare Board, bank. The returning migrants oftentimes go there for loan, seeking loan. So then we consult with the Wages Welfare Bank that if you can have a separate registry book, if any returning migrants visit you, then you can just make a small entry to them. Then our partner institutes call them, they sit with them, they have taken notes of the entire profile, they assess them, and then they invite them for training if the motivation exists. If not, then they spend some time to motivate them and then brief our activities, the occupation which is being available. At the same time, eventually they're being invited and enrolled to the training.
Yeah, I think that's a very satisfying answer to the question. So we have a follow-up question by Julius, and he asks, does training consist previous levels of education, qualification of the migrant, or migrants choose any training they wish to join?
It's a basically two-way process. Both of the processes applicable. First one is that we also we develop the capacity of the institute so that they can do it by themselves, by even when there will be no project. So, and our staffs who basically supported by Skills 21 project, they first of all sit with the returning migrants, the identified beneficiaries. They then brief them, okay, these 5 occupations is now currently ongoing in these training institutes. Then they want to try to get a quick match. What is his interest? What is his profile being referred to while he was engaged in the destination country, and the available occupation? They want to try to match. And we also, these are the ongoing intervention, and simultaneously we also take the field findings. For example, since most of our training institutes are government training institutes, they do not have much occupation. They, for example, a limited occupation. Then we take notes, okay, the returning migrants has demand for these of the occupations, but it is not available in the training institute. Then we support the BTB, we develop the curricula, we support the government that they can develop the curricula and introduce training to those institutes. So these two things basically we do when it is coming to the matching the occupation between the beneficiary and the institute.
Right, thank you. So what are the 3 occupations selected for ERPL platform?
Yeah, good question. So basically it is, since the occupation being selected by the BTEB, and the first one which we will pilot is on graphic design, that rest 2 which would be determined the BTEB, and then accordingly we will develop the entire assessment platform. The assessment platform work is ongoing, and the learning materials which would be digitalized basically as per the selected occupation which we will do. But currently it is on graphic design which we are working with.
Okay. Thanks. So there is a set of questions that has been asked by Dr. Shrija Basu, and she asked, are there any specific policies to enable returnees from within the country, and those may not have necessarily been returnees from overseas? So essentially, she's asking about internally a kind of mobile population and what policies are in place. And any specific approaches for your baseline study that you kind of undertook, for example, assessment of regions, areas which may have more kind of returnee migrants or economically disadvantaged and vulnerable refugees compared to other region areas in Bangladesh?
Yeah, good question. So basically, if I can say just one short note, that the migration component which you are now conducting under this Skills 21 project is basically a pilot. Since the reintegration thing is not much well established in Bangladesh and the concept is comparatively new to the country and its entire system, that how to address and support the returnees when they are coming back to Bangladesh for reintegration. So when doing this piloting, we basically piloted in two districts, which is Dhaka and Noshingdi. And we identified these two districts as Dhaka is the most migration prone region from Bangladesh, and Noshingdi is the most female migration prone areas from Bangladesh. So that's why we have picked these two districts, and we have when we have assessed, one interesting finding I can share, that when we have interviewed the Returnee migrants as a beneficiary, the 70% more to 70% they have expressed their interest to pick the entrepreneurship development training, meaning that they want to be entrepreneur, they aspire to be the entrepreneur rather than taking any 4-month skills training. So one reason can be that, okay, they have already earned a lot of money in the country, in the destination country, or they have experienced a lot of good bad things, but when they are coming back to country, they want to make something their own rather than working in someone else's place. So this is the interesting finding, and that's why we have taken some initiatives. We have introduced the entrepreneurship development training, which is currently conducting by the SIYB, Start Your Business. SIYB is a global tool of ILO, who are providing the entrepreneurship development training across the globe. So we have introduced this training to the institute so that they can also deliver this kind of training and expand in their area, serving the both potential migrants or returnees, even who are internally displaced or migrated due to climate change. They are also being receiver of this kind of training.
Right. I think the next question kind of links to what you have just said. It's about how internally kind of mobile population are supported by these training programs. So the next question is from Umesh Basant, and he's asking, how are different interventions identified? I think it's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, if I can understand these questions, how the different interventions identified, the different intervention is identified basically when we keep the beneficiary level at the center. Who are my beneficiaries? If we understand them, we have put them in the center, then we basically design these different initiatives, because services are sometimes available in a sense. There are lots of services, but sometimes in a scattered way, no communication in between among or between agencies. So it needs to be most of the time target oriented. Who are my target people? And then the intervention needs to be taken accordingly. Yeah. So this is the quickest way I can address this question, if it is fine.
Right. So there is the one last question that is there in the chat box by Tahur Farbin, and he's asking about people who normally migrate from the villages to the cities. Do you have any particular program in place to help them, which he thinks is not part of today's focus discussion on returning migrants?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But also I can respond that from Skills 21 project, I have said that our overall intervention is to basically to prepare the job market, be it the overseas or the local markets, and also to prepare the unemployed youth. As we can see, as we know that in every fiscal year, 2 million youths are entering into the job market. But definitely, so we need to address this unemployment issue, at the same time address the job market. So when intervening these two things, we basically have to work the youths who are unemployed. unemployed. And for them, we have 4 months skills training, entrepreneurship development training, and the RPL, recognition of prior learning. These services basically open for the local youth. So it doesn't segregate, even if he is being migrated due to climate change or not. So definitely it is very open services. Whoever is unemployed, then they can access to these services. So definitely it also covering the youths or the person who are being internally migrated from different districts to the metropolitan cities as well.
Right. Thank you for kind of beautifully answering these questions, which are quite entangled and complex, as I would imagine. So I had a small question when I was in Aurangabad, and we were doing this workshop with Bina, and we had invited these goldsmiths from Aurangabad city. So one of the migrant who came to our workshop, he had actually returned back from the Middle East during the COVID-19 period, and was not in a position to return back to Saudi to continue with his work. And he was kind of in a way forced to kind of join the other people in Aurangabad and earned relatively less amount, because he was earning a better salary, a better kind of income he had in the Middle East. Now, in the context of India, there must be similar programs, because ILO has got a big project in India too. But how do you see, like, for example, this case study that we saw, we interviewed him, like he was not very happy in returning back to India, because he had planned to build a big house in his hometown in the suburbs of Calcutta. And he did build a house, but then what happened? He went into indebtedness because he had borrowed so much money and he could not repay them back. So how do we, even in Bangladesh, you'll have similar kind of context. How do we kind of really help these people who have the skills, but they don't necessarily have, as you said, the certificates, the training to really kind of, showcase that they are skilled laborers and should be paid better wages?
Yeah. Thank you. So basically, what you have just described, the profile of a returning migrants, is basically most of the time it applies the same here, because returning migrants, as I have said, that most of the time it is very much involuntary return. They may not be prepared for return. It's not like that they have earned money. Now they have decided, okay, I have made enough. Now I'll go to Bangladesh. It's not happening basically this way. Most of the time is like very forcibly they have to return. Due to pandemic, it like no one is ready to come back to Bangladesh. They all have to come Bangladesh, and with high, some people went to with high cost of migration. So I mean, it was very much burden for them. And for that, basically, for employment is not the first thing. Sometimes, why I'm saying that sometimes they need the counseling support. When we are assessing the portfolio, we talk with them, we spend some time with them. Then, while understanding their situation, we sometimes refer to the for receiving the psychosocial counseling, because he needs that support. Then the emergency support, which basically in Bangladesh, there are several NGOs, they are providing the emergency support at the airport, just immediately after their return. Emergency support, then the psychosocial counseling. Once they return to home, then they set their mindset, okay, now I can do something. Then even they set their mindset, they do not have any available information that, okay, I need to go to this office, I need to knock the door, and then maybe sometimes I can get access to these services. So many kind of basically challenges are working at different layers when we design, say, about the reintegration. So at that time, we need to understand the portfolio, the background. If I can make it short and quick, my answer, that understand the portfolio, and then providing skills, at the same time referring to get the service of social protection. In Bangladesh, sometimes the Minister of Social Affairs, the Youth Development, they have some social protection schemes, and then returnees needs to get access to these schemes as well. Then they need the schemes and skills, that if they get access to the finance, what will they do with this kind of finance? They need proper right set of skills to make a best use of this finance. So basically, there is no straightforward thing, okay, with this single intervention we can make a good thing for the reintegration. There are several 2 for an entire comprehensive interventions needed for this integration happen, to make this integration happen. And for this, the partnership among the stakeholders is very necessary, at the root level, at the national and international level. level. I mean, a government alone can do it by themselves itself, one NGO, one UN agency. I mean, it needs a very much strong partnership with employers, with development partners, state level, that can make it happen in the ground for the beneficiaries.
I think, yeah, that's a very crucial point that you've highlighted in terms of the engagement of the civil society, the wider, community, as well as the state and international organizations. And then only it's possible, because you don't know how many people are returning back. I think I have one last question. It's with relation to this whole idea of climate refugees. So, there are mixed bag of population. Some people are migrating because of aspiration. Some people are migrating because of loss of income. Others are migrating because they will get a better job. So what do you see the link between climate refugeehood and normal migration? As you said, because of economic opportunities, they're going out, and also because of the lack of employment in Bangladesh, people are migrating to foreign countries. So in that context, who are these migrants? Are they the rich people, or they're the poor people? Are they the landed or the landless? Who are the migrants who are mostly going out of Bangladesh to the Middle East, and how that is linked with the climate impact in the current context?
Yeah, thank you. 2-3 interlinked questions. Basically, I will make a single response just to understand and the overall context of this migration portfolio. So it's mostly talking about the aspirant migrants who are basically aspire to migrate to different destination countries. If you can check, basically, it's very difficult to segregate this way. I mean, because we cannot say in which level people set their mindset for migration. But in general, if we want to answer, because there is no such data at my hand right now for this segregation, if I can say, mostly when if we can see from the destination angle, for destination countries angle, as you were saying, that who are going to the Middle East. If it is the Middle East, that's basically the labor migration we are referring to. Labor migration meaning that it's not the people who are from the rich category in terms of financial solvency and sufficiency. Is basically the people who are mostly coming from the village, and from the village level they sometimes come to Dhaka. They are using it as a transition place sometimes, that okay, they are coming to Dhaka for economic opportunity, but eventually they stop for with the internationally migration. And this is happening at the same time. And when it's coming to the climate change relationship between climate change and the migration, definitely when in a region, for example, in the southern part of Bangladesh, where the climate change is happening and creating impact to different degrees in lives of people, here we can see that when the people is not getting any opportunity, economic opportunity, at the same time, they first want to go to the metropolitan cities. A study I can refer, it is by the USAID, who is being studied, they taken place in 2 regions, Khulna and Joshore. And it is said that they first set their mindset to migrate to the nearby metropolitan city. Not first sight, they want to go to the international migration, because due to the high cost of migration, when it is coming to the international, it cost high. So when it affecting by the climate change, they are not much ready to pay such amount and then migrate to different destination countries. They first try to migrate to the metropolitan cities, and then they want to check what is available in that city. But definitely they are less advantage compared to the origin people who are that from city, because they are migrating, they have come now. And it has been also found that the stakeholders from that city are not also first sight, they do not provide sufficient services to them, because they are saying if we do provide sufficient services to them at first place, they will stay here permanently. So this kind of mindset exists basically. So when they do not find available services and employment, then sometimes with depending on the situation, they set their mindset for international migration as well. But definitely they are interlinked, and this climate change works as a very much a drive, working as a driver for this migration. But most of the time it is found that people do the unsafe migration, because they're being desperate to look into the economic opportunity wherever it is available. And there are, as the concept of middleman. So it's already everywhere. They knock the middleman's door, and middlemen give the false or this kind of information, and they migrate just to based on that they have trust on their middlemen, and then they make the informed this kind of decision.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting kind of narrative in how migration is taking place, both internally as well as internationally. So climate change itself, as you said, is a trigger, but there is no causal link between climate change and the mass mobility of population. There can be different sets of factors which determines people's mobility, and aspiration is one of them. So that makes the story more interesting. I think we have come to the conclusion of today's presentation. I'd like to thank you for your very interesting and very detailed kind of description of how the ILO is functioning and the programs that they have launched. In the meantime, I would also request others to join our next talk, which will be organized on Thursday by Beena Sanger, and it will be also on migration, and there will be a kind of panel talk where I will also join. We have a colleague from Florida State University who is going to kind of present his thoughts, and there are other colleagues from Aurangabad who would present. So if anybody has any other question at this point of time, you can ask before we conclude.
Yes, I want to have some question. I am Mr. Habibur Talgar. I am calling from Bangladesh. I want to know that there are many questions in chat box. So why you did not this answer chat box question? Please discuss it.
Okay, sorry. I think we might have missed some of the questions. Can you tell us which question was missed? Okay. Okay, I think you can see there are some questions. We need to complete them. So there is one question by Mr. Rahman. He says, any follow-up activities, like are they satisfied with their job or salary? Are they interested in switching their job due to salary issues or job environment? This is one question that he has posted, which I missed. Yeah. This is one question that I missed to ask you. So if you'd like to give this answer.
I assume that is this about the international migration, the salary switching and job switching.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, yes, this is very obvious as a part of human tendency, where they are also, since they are migrating, the prime cause to get access to decent employment and earn better wages. And definitely they have this kind of tendency. They are knocking doors in the destination countries and to the employers where to get the better wages. But definitely it is not much easy, as we all know that while they are first of all accommodating to a different kind of environment first, to understand the context, the different country context for the Bangladeshi migrants, then understand the employer requirements, because these are the information they didn't receive before setting up their mind for migration. So first time they have heard while they have already migrated to other countries. So then they have to struggle with this information and getting contacts, and then maybe somehow they can get access to any kind of job. They're also always looking for the better opportunity, but that doesn't come in a very easy way. So yeah, for this reason, basically we have discussed today's many points, like how the skills recognition, getting their skills by recognized by the national competency-based certificate. They can get more better access to the better wages. Yeah, so I think it's a very natural, human tendency, and it does happen in the when it is coming to the migrants, whether it is internally or internationally.
Yeah, I think we have one last question in the chat box. Where women's part of the training session under Skill 21?
Yes, it is. Basically, the Skills 21 project beneficiaries are open for when it is, our interventions basically designed for the two groups of people, basically three. When it is coming to the beneficiary level, there are three level we are working, and the structural level, the beneficiary level and the national level, international, national limits. So when it is coming to the beneficiary, we have three categories of beneficiary. First of all, the youths, basically who we are supporting through our skill development initiative, the migrant workers who are going to abroad internationally, and also the returnees, and then the teachers training. I mean, to prepare the system basically to address this intervention, the teachers from the government institutes. So when it is coming to the youths and migrant workers, it also does include the women returnees, the women, the female youth as well. So it definitely does cover the women counterpart. And when it is coming to the returning migrants, is very interesting that during pandemic we have introduced the entrepreneurship development training in online platform, so which was very much easy for a woman staying from her home, and she can easily get access to this kind of services. So it was also one of the findings that how digital intervention facilitates and creates a easy access to the services for different group of people, be it the person with disabilities, the women, or the other disadvantaged people. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So I see another question coming in by Mohammed Somas, and he's from the Maldives. And he writes that I joined the webinar late. In the Maldives, majority of the migrants coming in from Bangladesh are coming in from Bangladeshi community. Both Bangladesh and Maldives are vulnerable in terms of climate change. So I would like to ask if you have any reflection on this.
So it's basically maybe it's referring to the Bangladesh and Maldives, like how to address this climate change thing. And definitely that Maldives has similar kind of issue. I will not say it's same, it's similar. And Maldives has its own background and context which is being affected by climate change. Bangladesh also, especially the southern part. So I think that the intervention which we have discussed very quickly, if I can reflect this kind of Maldives and Bangladesh similar context, is that definitely in Bangladesh context, in the southern part of people who are being affected by the climate change issue, they oftentimes migrate to the nearby metropolitan cities and look for employment. But definitely it needs a basically sustainable solution. I mean, in Bangladesh now, what we are doing when the massive influx or massive movement happens, we do for a temporary basis just to quickly address the problem, but it doesn't sustain. And we do not understand the context. We neither think of the future, what will be the consequence of our intervention. Just very quickly, we need to do something just to quickly address the problem temporarily. So, and it goes away when the problem is solved for a while. For example, the recent flood which affected in Bangladesh, we made some quick interventions just to address the problem temporarily. But once this is done, the floods, like there is no waterlogged situation, and then it just goes away every intervention. So, I mean, Bangladesh, be it Maldives or Bangladesh, that's one thing that we need to be prepared for this kind of intervention when it's coming to the climate change, because we cannot basically deny this thing, and it's the future. We need to be ready for, so it needs a sustainable intervention just to tackle this problem, I would rather say.
Yeah, I think the other part of his question was majority of the migrants in Maldives are from Bangladesh, if I'm not kind of correct, if I'm not wrong. So
yeah,
that?
Exactly. So
from one climate vulnerable region to another climate vulnerable region in the Indian Ocean region. So that creates the added challenge for countries like Maldives, which is an island state.
Exactly. So basically for these basically two nations need to have a good understanding or dialogue in between, that the Bangladesh as a sending country needs to prepare how the nation, as a nation, he will send his people to Maldives, and to specify the purpose with some skills, so that these people, when migrating to Maldives, which is another vulnerable country, doesn't get burdened to each other. Rather, if they migrate, they can be contribute to the economic opportunities. At the same time, Maldives needs to be ready in a sense when he will receive the migration, because when one country is receiving and one country is sending, meaning that two has separate kind of motivation to send and to receive. Otherwise, this will not happen. So if someone is receiving, at the same time, they need to be sensitized if the local people is fine with the context from Maldives, and the migrated people who are coming from Bangladesh, how to address them as well. So this kind of state level dialogue I need is very much important, and where the employers, the private sectors can play a good role, employers from Bangladesh, employers from Maldives, and to sensitize them is important, because employers oftentimes only understand to how to get benefited and regulate the overall labor market, but this kind of issues, the climate change issues, the sensitization is important for them as well. So yeah, I would very much say, though it is not my scope of, I mean, it's not putting in my scope, our project scope, but definitely this is where I would like to have a quick reflection in this issue.
No, thank you. I think you have given a very interesting answer to this question, and we need to be careful and sensitive about, the skill set that are transferable and that can be used in a new country or a new context. So it's migration should not always be seen as a burden. In fact, people are migrating globally. Historically, people have been migrating, and that has added to the value chain of particular societies. So migration should never be seen as a burden for any country. In fact, migrants add to the whole local economy, as you see in the context of Europe, or the classic example is the US, where most of the people are migrants who are kind of, boosting the local economy as well as the national economy. So I think here we are coming to the end of today's session. I would request our colleague in ICCCAD, particularly Tahmina, who organized this event, to say a few words before we conclude.
Hi, Dr. Das. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tahmina, for your wonderful presentation and showing so many dimensions that we can work on later related to the climate change and migration and all of the other scopes. Thank you for showing us these scopes to work forward. So we'll hope that we'll get you in our further journey regarding anything that you are expert on. So thank you so much again. And thank you, Dr. Das, for being the host today. And you were, as always, you were so great. And this is like quite ending of our SSRC webinar series from Bangladesh side. So it's kind of farewell. So we'll see if we can work together later. So I'm very grateful to all of you, all of the audience. Thank you so much for being there. So over to you, Dr. Das. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tahmina, for organizing this event, and also for kind of, organizing the other events throughout the year. This has been really helpful. And we would like to extend our research kind of commitments and collaborations in the near future as we go in this journey of exploring the Indian Ocean region through collaborative and trans-regional kind of networks. This is not the end of the journey, and this is just the beginning, because we have just started this new forte of research where we are looking at the global south from a completely different perspective, by looking at decolonial methodologies and empowering local communities in understanding how climate challenges can be kind of encountered through local knowledge production. And so it's a kind of more of a participatory practice. And you have learned at the beginning of the session that over a period of 1 year, we have developed collaboratory networks with colleagues in Tanzania, in Mozambique, in Bangladesh, and in India. So this has been a really helpful and a productive journey. With these words, I will conclude for today's meeting, and we will commence our meeting on Thursday when Bina is going to organize the event. And Bina, do you want to kind of just say hi or invite everybody to come to that session that you're organizing?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Dr. Das, for giving me this opportunity to invite everybody. Thank you for organizers and the addressees of today's talk. And I would cordially invite all the participants of today's online web seminar to kindly come for the 22nd panel discussion seminar. It's not going to be one person's talk, and we have invited 3 like along with Dr. Das, and I'll be there because I'm steering this talk, and it is going to be more. It is going to look more to the time across. It will be cutting across the timeline. So we'll try to look into the historicities of migration and climate change. And therefore, other than me, the two other speakers, one is Professor Radhika Shishan, who is an expert and one of the leading scholar and of Indian Ocean trade and history. She will be there speaking about different migratory patterns in the history itself. And Professor Iqbal Akhtar, who is a good friend from Miami, Florida International University of Miami, who is another great expert in the Indian Ocean migratory patterns, especially between South Asia and Western Africa, Eastern Africa. So with these two exemplary scholars and panel discussants, along with our own time with Dr. Das and myself and all the participants and some of the team members within this session of today, I cordially invite you all. The session on 22nd will begin at 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So more or less, it will be 6:30 p.m. of Bangladesh time and respectively to other parts of the world. So I look forward to have you all. Please spare your time and do come. I'm definitely sure that you will enjoy and will be academically enriching ourselves with more thoughts and questions. Thanks, Dr. Das, for giving me this opportunity to invite all. And I am looking forward to have you all again.
Thank you, Bina, and the rest of our team and all participants in this meeting. I would now kind of end this session. So have a good evening and the rest of the week. Thank you. Bye.